All right. It looks like we're live. And I'm here with David Zeff, founder of Whistle and many-time sales manager, sales director. Built a couple of startups. Do you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, thanks, David. So, founded Whistle recently. We're less than a year old, but been in startup land for about 10 years now. Have had my own startup, have been early employee at a couple of different startups, and ridden that wave. And Whistle's ready now. We're all focused on solving some of the biggest problems in that space, which is all about uh, getting your marketing and sales on track. So, hoping to bring some of the knowledge and some of the scars that I've got from 10 years in on the startup roller coaster, and just use that to make the whole experience a lot less painful and a lot more successful as well.
Right. Cool. And so we're going to talk a little bit about, marketing is doing a lot of behind the scenes, bringing the leads in and bringing the traffic in. But the bottom line is, as a salesperson, you're the person making contact with the customers. Having a marketer's face all over the place is great, but nobody knows who they are. They're behind the scenes. If the person they know, the person they see on screen, the person they hear on the podcast is the one reaching out to them, they already have that rapport, that relationship, and makes the sale that much easier to open the conversation and start going. And so that's, one of the big benefits of doing this, even as a sales team, and not just relying on your marketing team to do all that for you.
Oh, 100%.
Yeah. So you want to you launched a podcast recently, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I'm a big consumer of podcasts, and I want to, just add to that point. I think that if you're not personal branding now, or you're not already doing it, like literally start right now. Maybe, I don't want to say leave the live, because but get on it, because it doesn't cost much. It's really easy to do, and the impact and benefit is tremendous. Not just for your own personal whatever career and being able to create those network connections, but even within your role, like your customers trusting you is really important, and they do buy from you. Like they're buying from the salesperson because they really like you. I've had many situations where I've left jobs and had customers from previous companies come and reach out to, hey, what are you up to now? Is there a way we can work together? So you shouldn't miss out on that. And your voice is really, the main, at least from a sales perspective, your voice is the main selling point, right? Your actual physical voice. And that's what they recognize. And when they see you as a human and as a person, definitely. And podcasting is just one amazing marketing tool to amplify that. And for me, the reason I started podcasting is because, one, I consume a lot of podcasts. I mean, Joe Rogan for me is one of my inspirations for a couple of reasons, other than his $100 million Spotify deal, which would be nice. I think I'm a bit far, but there's a few little sneaky tricks that you can, really get from podcasting that you can't necessarily get from other forms of content. So one is live, authentic conversations, right, like we're having now. There's no real script, right? Anything can happen. So between you and the guest, there's a lot of interesting things that can happen there. But also, your audience, they get to see and learn lots of different things. The long form conversation is really interesting, and that's something that I've always been really fascinated by. And then you can reuse that content in lots of different ways. So if you the Gary V 64 pieces in a day, is one of the things that that I look at often and think about, is how to take one piece and reuse it. And podcasting gives you a lot of ammo there. So I think it's definitely worth doing, and that's why I started doing it.
Right. And to your point, it's not hard. That's part of personal branding. People, writing a blog could be a pain, sitting down and writing and deleting and rewriting, and that design, obviously you need to have skill, certain skill set, and a lot of Photoshop's expensive. It seems like just pulling out a camera, pulling out your phone, do whatever, and put a podcast or video or video like we're doing now. There's very little barrier to entry. It's very fast. It's very easy. You already have the entire toolkit that you need in your pocket on a daily basis, accessible any day, anytime. And so that's what we're going to talk a little bit about, kind of helping people figure out how to just do it. Don't overthink it. Don't push it off day after day, just saying I have to plan it and I have to think about it and I have to buy equipment and I have to do all that. Just pull out your phone and do it.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, when I originally started, just something I didn't share with you in the past, my thinking was to basically have a really, really well edited podcast, something like if you're familiar with London Real Academy and how they set themselves up.
Okay.
If you're not, you can take a look. And I actually had put aside a budget for podcasting where I was going to pay a professional videographer to do it. We actually did an episode of really, really high quality, which I haven't ever released. And I was thinking of dropping one of those a month. And then these like quick kind of like we're doing right now every week. And at the moment, I just realized like, I don't necessarily need that, right? I can just have these conversations and reuse it. And maybe we'll go back to that idea, but not something that would, not critical right now, at least.
100%. And I mean, it's been on the uptick, I mean, leading up to this, but now when COVID hit, it became even more apparent. The not professional quality gives it a level of authenticity that you won't get from a production quality piece. And that adds to the, makes it more authentic. People relate to it more. People could kind of see it's you talking and out of script or something that, that you don't know what you're talking about and just reading off something that pre-written.
Yeah, agreed.
Okay, so let's talk a little bit about so you've done a couple of podcasts. I've done a couple of these live video streams, and we're just going to talk a little bit about how the process, how you ramp up to it. So you want to go through how you pick a topic, how you pick a speaker, how you prep them.
Yeah, absolutely. So there's a few kind of ways to do it. So the first thing is I'm trying to focus most of the conversations I have on topics that my customers are interested in. And so my customers really at the moment are usually CEOs or C-level executives of fast-growing startups, raise some money and looking to take their companies further and set it up in the right way. So I try to talk to experts who've done that in specific domains, specifically along the sales and marketing discussion. Our podcast, by the way, and something I think I'll add, I call it the Pipecast. And the reason why it's completely separately branded to Whistle is that I don't want it to feel like some sort of corporate thing. It's supposed to feel like some sort of, underground, natural, organic, just conversations. Obviously, we're backlinking everything as we can and doing whatever we can, but it's not like a Whistle production. It's exactly right. It's just David having conversations with people, right? And those conversations go like that. So the types of people, the interesting thing also that you'll find is people are very willing to be a podcast guest. It's great. Yeah. It's a cool thing. It's still something that people appreciate, and it will eventually run its course, I'm sure, as a channel, like all channels do. But people are open to it. So picking a guest is really important. I think finding a topic or at least a domain to talk about is really important because you get known for that. Having said that, I don't think it's critical. Joe Rogan talks about anything, and he's the biggest podcast in the world, right? He'll talk with MMA fighters and scientists and Elon Musk. So it's not. I wouldn't say that's critical, but finding that person is relatively easy. And for me, there's a commercial angle to it, so that's why I'm focusing in that way. As far as prepping them, I'm really trying to keep it as natural as possible. So I don't really kind of send them a list of questions and say like, hey, quick round, like if you had to choose your favorite flavor of ice cream, which would it be? Because I don't listen to that. So I don't want to do that. I just listen to people talking about stuff that they've got expertise in, or even sometimes that can digress, and I just kind of tune out while I'm working. And so for me, that's pretty critical. I'll have an initial conversation. Hey, can we talk about ABC? This is the reason. This is the general direction. I want to talk about top of the funnel optimization. I want to talk about how to build an SDR team from scratch. I want to talk about how to market during COVID-19, and then we have these kinds of conversations. And so the people that I bring on, I guess, are going to be naturally open to that, right? If you've got someone who's like a bit like, oh, can you give me some topics and some scripts? They might always not be the right podcast guest. And you've got to think about it because they're really boring and there's no kind of personality in the conversation, or they're really timid or scared or not willing to share an opinion. Right. People aren't going to want to listen.
Right. But that's part of your job, to draw it out of them and get them to talk. But of course you have to be engaging in order to keep the momentum going. I think to your point also, video and podcast and audio are kind of like the rivalries kind of there. Why video is better, audio is better. What do you do? Where do you invest? I think two big advantages that audio have are, first of all, people are more comfortable. when you don't have the camera with you, you're more available. You don't have to prepare. You don't have to go, do your hair and makeup and be in a nice room and like all that stuff. And I think it's also more natural to extent, even though people are now getting more used to, doing Zoom calls and being on video calls.
Yeah, I mean, the other thing I'll add is at the moment, what I've been doing is just keeping it audio only with just an image, for the and the reason is for that, just people can just talk, especially now during this period where like you're catching people in their child's room, or what, and there's like a Barbie in the background or whatever there is. So I think people are more comfortable, and it's easier to kind of prepare for. When it comes to video, you've got to watch out about lighting. Like I've got this little magic thing over here. You've got to and you're constantly checking your own image while you're talking. So I think it throws people off sometimes. But having said that, I mean, the best podcasts in the world are video. So,
well, I think like you said, their podcasts on video, they get both sides. Because the bigger the advantage also to audio only is that you could kind of listen to it when you're in the car or when you're jogging or something like that. You don't necessarily have an hour to sit down and watch a video of a conversation, but you could do it while you're doing something else.
Yeah, agreed. And that's, I think, I'd love to know. I don't know the data about it, but I'd assume that most people, that's how they consume it. Like when they're driving, when they're working, when they're working out, when they're, maybe going for a walk. I don't know how many people, I guess it depends, but I don't know how many people are already sitting and watching the whole, hour or 2 hours or however long these podcasts might go, of just two people talking to each other.
Right. They can get long. Okay. So I do the video side of things, because for me, it was just more, kind of just pulled out my phone, started doing it.
Yep.
I never took the time to figure out the podcast. You have to subscribe them into the Apple podcast feed or some other feeds. How do you do that? How do you go about that? Or can you just do it on your own site? And
yeah, you can just do it. I mean, one, you can do it on your own site. Two, YouTube's very easy. And plus, I'm doing it, like if you're looking at me, I'm doing it in the bare bones, easiest way possible, which may be something that people could start with because it really doesn't require much. Number one, if you've got Zoom, you can set that up very easy. Just set up a Zoom meeting, record the conversation. You can either edit it in Zoom if you really want to go like as bare as possible. But I mean, I use like iMovie. I got a Mac, so iMovie. I do the album cover in Adobe Illustrator. I built a template. I just tweak the images, take someone's LinkedIn picture, swap it in, swap it out. Other than that, I might pull a royalty-free track that I'll add to the podcast. What I've just started doing, because I've started to get a little bit more fancy, is Canva. Canva's free, and you can create beautiful stuff. And just like I take little excerpts from it and like little quotes, and I've just started adding that to some of the social posts and seeing if there's a lift. And yeah, I think that's it doesn't. None of that really costs much. I think I don't know what a Zoom license. I think Zoom license is like $10, $20 a month, something like that.
13, yeah.
Yeah. So it's not super heavy budget over here, and you don't have to use iMovie comes with everything else comes with it. Adobe Illustrator, you don't have to use that, right? Especially if you're not doing anything with album covers.
Canva's good enough to do album covers.
Yeah, and it's free.
Right, so you're not submitting the podcast onto Stitcher or onto
at the moment, no. But I mean, there are like systems like Anchor, which I've been looking at, which can get you onto a whole bunch of different places at one go, right? And I know this is kind of where you have more expertise. Absolutely, I should. I'm definitely not saying I shouldn't. I just haven't been. And I think the rule with marketing is you kind of want to be everywhere, but you don't really want to be you want to be everywhere where your audience is.
Exactly. You want to make it as easy as possible for your audience to find you, but don't waste your time where your audience is not.
Yeah. I mean, even like just as a side note, like as far as my social strategy goes, I'm 90% LinkedIn.
Yeah.
99% LinkedIn, because that's where my audience is, and that's where I'm not going to get anyone on Instagram, right? I'm not going to get. Maybe I'll get on Facebook, not sure, but that's really where I focus all of our attention as a brand, at least at the moment, and it's working. So,
well, if it works, that's the important part.
I guess so.
So on the video side, what I do is, I like I said, I pull out phone, start these interviews. At some point, Facebook kind of stopped doing the guest posting, like the guest hosting for live video, and so started using workaround tools to get there. But again, it's just on a Facebook channel, on Facebook Live on your channel. LinkedIn is my audience is also primarily there. The problem is that LinkedIn Live, you have to, it's in beta still, so LinkedIn it's not readily available. You have to request permission and wait for them to, 6 months for them to give you permission if they do, and then they give your page, your personal profile. So it's a whole mess. I mean, I'm waiting for them to let me in, but in the meantime, I'm just kind of
I've also applied. The weird thing is, once you apply, they don't necessarily like notify you of the status. You've got to go in and check, and
right.
Not desperate, so I haven't been. I haven't been checking. I don't know.
Right. And in terms of equipment, also like you said, I use the Mac. I either a phone or a Mac. In this case, we're just using this entire broadcast setup that what we're doing is all my Mac, your Mac, whatever I use for Zoom. That's all it takes.
Yeah, and I guess the mic, right? I mean, you're using like a directional. I mean, I use everything with a headset, but do you have like a directional mic, or what are you doing?
So I usually do have either I have a headset if I'm in the office and it's loud. Right now, I'm literally just open up the Mac. I'm using it. No additional equipment.
Oh.
I do have a mic that I use with my phone, because then you're standing a little bit further away, and so you want to have that audio pickup. Yeah. Cool. So now let's go through the process of creating the podcast. How do you step one, step two, find a guest, plan, how far in advance you schedule it, what software do you use, things like that.
Okay, so the trick is to have a backlog of pre-made podcasts. This is going to make it so easy. So your first week, do like 4. Okay. And do one a day. Do one recording a day. Edit it, whatever. And then you only have to release, you only have to have a new recording in a month's time if you're releasing it once a week. Like I'm doing once a week. Yeah. If you want to do it, I don't know however often you want to do it. I'm doing it once a week. So if I do 4 on week 1, I don't have to do anything else for, until week 5. I have to record one. Or what have you, or week 4, and then I'll record another bunch, and that's me for the month. So all you do at that point then is just release them. You can do timed releases, for example, on YouTube. So you can upload everything ahead of time and just set it to release every Monday at a certain time. And then you look super busy. I think one of the other tricks with marketing is you need to look like you're everywhere. And we are not everywhere. Here's a secret about Whistle. We're not everywhere. So, but you got to look really big, and you got to look really, and every company has that, right? Even the biggest companies still want to look bigger than they are. And so these little tricks and hacks help. So I think number 1 is just in terms of like structure, do a bunch at one time. In terms of finding guests, I think you really got to think about, let's say from a professional angle, let's say you're doing a professional podcast, or even if it's like, as a hobby, I think you do want to, if you got to go after one topic, you want to really try and build an audience around that. And the best way to build an audience around that is to stay in that lane and keep adding to it. So it doesn't have to be like, I'm only going to talk about, the marketing to sales handover, because that's like might be 1 or 2 conversations, right? But you can talk about like the marketing and sales landscape, and you interview people that each kind of fill a different role. Another interesting thing is if you're thinking about podcasting as a strategic marketing weapon and as a lead generation source, the way to do the lead generation with podcasting is not necessarily to target everyone that came to your podcast with a sales message and say, let's say webinar, right? And say, hey, thanks for joining. By the way, do you want to buy what I'm selling? Maybe they were just interested in the topic. So the trick is to build that audience, get domain authority. But whoever you bring on as a guest, they should potentially be someone who you're selling to, wants to sell to. I hope that's not too confusing. So like a potential customer of your audience. And if you do that, that's like one easy way that your audience goes, oh, that this person knows exactly who I'm selling to, and they know what I want to talk to, like who I want to talk to. Let me get in touch with that company, right? They're talking to cybersecurity marketing, heads. They must know everything there is to know about cybersecurity marketing. I own a cybersecurity company and I want to improve, so let me contact them. That's like a little tactical one in terms of who you pick as a guest.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Yeah, and as far as outreach, I mean, it's pretty easy to find people to be a podcast guest. There's also platforms. I came across one called Spot a Guest, where it's basically like a demand gen, for like on the demand side for podcasts, like hosts and guests. So you can find guests for different kinds of topics or people who like to talk about different things. I think it's all free. I don't know how they monetize it, but it's quite a nice idea. And I think that given the boom of podcasts, it's sitting in a good place and definitely worth exploring as well. But you can easily reach out to somebody on social. Hey, would love to talk. Like, I think also having your intentions very clear from the outset is important too. Hey, wanted to, I think you've done great work in this field. I think it would be worth us having a conversation. Most people put aside the time, and also being generous with, like, if you are generating leads or anything like that, linking to their company, mentioning their company, that kind of stuff does go a long way. Just like you gave us a plug at the beginning, so all of those things come in handy.
Right. I think it's also, I mean, part of it is also when you have, when you reach out to the guests, you were saying about the prep, where you kind of tell them what you want to talk about. I think part of it is also who the audience is, and they realize it's somebody that you want to get in front of, and it's someone that'll help them. That's kind of what'll help bring them in, and also help them tailor the conversation, the answers to, these are a bunch of students, so they need very entry level stuff, or these are a bunch of high end professionals, so they want no fluff, just technique.
And you guys did, you guys had a massive success recently when you did the one with, in the middle of COVID, when everything was kind of going down, like how to really generate leads, and you managed to get like some big thought leaders there as well, which I think people would like. I mean, I definitely want to hear about it. I don't know if you want to kind of give us some of the secret sauce, but like, how did you guys get that going?
So that's another thing that kind of actually now, because everything's gone to virtual events, and back to people's thing, you have a lot more access. I mean, we've been trying to get Brian Halligan, CEO of HubSpot. So for years, he's been saying, "Yeah, I'll put on my schedule. I'll try to figure out when I'll come to Tel Aviv and I'll speak." And it was a long time coming. But for him to come out here, it's at least a 72-hour commitment. He's not going to fly out here, do a 1 hour and leave. So he's going to fly out here. So it's a 12-hour flight, and then between the airport and security and everything, it's 12 hours to get here and get to the hotel and check it. So he has to be here for at least 2 or 3 days. So it's a full week in his schedule. But if I tell him I want to bring you on to a 1 hour podcast or 1 hour webinar, it's like, okay, I'll book that one slot. The 1 hour that I saved on the morning commute to work, I'll be on your webinar during that time. Yeah. And so a lot more access to people that normally you would not have access to, and on a global stage. You don't have to find people here in Tel Aviv to talk to. You could bring literally anyone from around the world, and you just time we've been doing our events early afternoon lately because that's morning Boston time, and that's the time when we can get the speakers out from the US.
That's also a key part, like is the timing of when you're like, because if you're doing live stuff like what we're doing now, the timing's really important as well, right? Depending on the audience that you're trying to attract.
It is. I mean, I kind of found this timing works to an extent because it's here in Israel. People kind of, hopefully your kids are in bed already by 9 p.m. and so you have a little bit of time to listen. Meanwhile, on the West Coast, it's still like early, like not early morning, but it's you got to the office, you settled in, and now you have a little bit of time to listen to this in the background while you're doing something else. It's like 11 a.m. there, so it kind of works out well on both sides. And yeah, we did two big events during this period. The first one was 2 weeks after the lockdown came into effect, and so literally everyone, we were scrambling to try to figure out a platform, speakers, agenda, everything, and we actually published one of the things that we did in-house is we took one person and told them, you are not allowed to participate in this event in any way, shape, or form. Your job is to document everything, because we know that if you start, if you get responsible for something, you won't be done. And then they took all that documentation and turned it into like a playbook on how to run virtual events, and schedule, agenda, and all that stuff. And so we put them, and that was like a really impressive, because within 2 weeks we got over 30 speakers from around the world. We got some big names. We got John Medved from our crowd. We got Kip Budner, CMO of HubSpot. We got a bunch of VCs came on, Eden Shochat, and getting all those people within such a short time frame on. And I think that was the only way to get them all available in such a short time frame and at the same place at the same time was because of the virtual event and because we were doing it during this period. So this is definitely a start.
Absolutely. And I was going to say, like, I'm doing something interesting now. I'm going to be doing a I don't know how much we can stretch the word podcast, but I guess it's a presentation, but it's a discussion with, I think it's like 40 CEOs at one time, and just sharing best practice ideas and having someone ask me, and it's in a different country, and like that's really exciting because like for me to get in front of 40 CEOs like at that kind of level and have them listen to me for an hour, especially if it's in a foreign country, like it's really hard and really expensive to organize. And so this whole what's happened over the last few months with COVID, and we were always in quite a digital world anyway, but it's really ramped things up. Like it's shortened the adoption cycle, and that's opened up all sorts of windows that people can take advantage of, especially when it comes to building a brand right now.
100%.
Zero cost.
And I mean, I don't know if this is the right word, but it kind of leveled the playing field on the high end of things in terms of technology adaptation. Everyone was forced to overnight become digital first, Zoom as the norm, and just kind of roll with it.
Yeah, I agree. And I think for the big brands that are entering this, that I think the one thing that makes them stand out, other than obviously the guests that they can attract, is probably the production value of what they can put together, right? Like some of the better podcasts just have really well edited, and that's fine. That works too, but that doesn't mean that you can't have a successful channel with just a standard microphone and a Zoom conversation or something on StreamYard or what have you.
I mean, more than that, I'd say you should probably start off that way.
Yeah.
I'd say don't not start because you're waiting for your $500 microphone to show up, and don't invest the money until you actually do one episode, 2 episodes, start to get a feel for it, see that you're going to be consistent with it, and as you start to build an audience, then invest in a tripod and a microphone and maybe a better camera, and then kind of build your way up as you grow. Don't just go and drop all invest a ton of money into something before it's something that you want to do in long term.
Yeah, and I think if you look at it, podcast as like a tool for growth. I mean, following like I think I've spent too long in startup land, so the lean startup method just kind of pervades everything that I do. So I'm always looking at like, what is the quickest way from A to B, the quickest, most affordable, most efficient way to get from A to B. So if I'm trying to use a podcast to get an audience, do I have to have a videographer and a full scale production, or can I just grab someone on the phone or on Zoom and record and publish it?
Right, 100%. You could. Now back to your podcast. The process of putting it together. How do you? I mean, if you're on Spotify or something like that, then people subscribe to your channel and they keep getting updates. How do you keep that audience growing as opposed to starting from scratch each time? Just having them follow you personally?
Yeah, I mean, so the one area that I invest a lot of time in is building a LinkedIn audience. All focused kind of around thought leadership in the industry that I know my clients are paying the most attention to. And the podcast is just one element of it. It's just another way for them to get more familiar with what I'm doing and share it. I think that, I don't think it necessarily requires, certainly you can always do it better, but even just to get going and if you're using this for like a personal branding tool or you're a new company trying to get attention. I mean, I've also been a guest on a bunch of different podcasts from early stage startups that just wanted to interview like a sales leader or expert or whatever, and for them, like anything that you share is really helpful and useful. And as a guest, I think one of the other key pieces that I might have missed out on is you want to talk to someone who's actually listening to what you're saying. Right. So that's, again, I know I'm jumping a little bit, but I feel like I missed this. Like when you give someone a scripted podcast, like we're going to talk about this, and then I'm going to ask you what's your favorite color and which animal you like. Whatever their answer is doesn't really matter to you because you're waiting for the next question. But if they talking about something relatively open, and then that unlocks a topic that you're really curious about, and you as the host dive in, then
Right.
great. And I think if you're in sales, not to kind of take this away from anything, but if you're in sales, you're used to doing that anyway. If you're doing consultative selling, for example, you're used to having conversation. If someone's really interested in a certain topic, kind of diving in, like, oh, why is that a problem? Why is that a challenge? How are you resolving it,
Right.
etc., etc. Same kind of thing as having a conversation on a podcast.
Right, and I agree with it. I think it's also makes it more engaging when it's an actual conversation and not just a scripted, Q&A rehearsed.
Yeah.
Also, from my experience, just doing kind of some of the videos, I realize if it's scripted and you get 2 words off script, then you're like, damn, I start over.
Yeah.
But if it's kind of you just have a general outline of, okay, this is kind of the direction we want to go. We want to cover, this thing here that we're doing now. We kind of just said, we want to start off with like why it's important, talk a little bit about technology and then talk a little bit about that. But we didn't really have any, script of like word for word what to say, and that helps it roll along more smoothly. Also, kind of having this open, I see that we're getting questions actually from the audience. Dan Cohen's asking about, how do you build an audience? And I think that goes back to the question I asked before. How do you, make sure that they keep coming back?
Well, I think having something of substance is probably the most important part, right? Because frequency without substance just gets really annoying. So I think the most important thing is to hopefully have something worth talking about or worth sharing. And if you're not really sure, again, I also want to say, like, don't set super high expectations with anything that you're doing. I mean, we're talking about podcasting, we're not talking about creating a TV show. So, if just try, and then you'll figure it out. You'll get feedback. Like, some people will tell you, hey, that was really great, interesting. Or maybe if you got honest friends, might tell you the other way. But if pick a topic that you're personally really interested in, or an industry that you're already involved in, or if it's or if you're in that, if this is done for work, then that's a different kind of angle altogether. And just keep honing in that message, and that audience will grow. I'm going to just kind of share, I guess, the methodology that I've used specifically on LinkedIn, which is sharing valuable content that my audience thinks about all the time, saying sometimes things that people think but don't want to say or too scared to say. And I'm not talking about controversial, political, or anything. It's only specifically to the job and to the work and to the industry that they're in. And then everyone who likes that or engages with that, making sure that you respond to them, that you connect with them, because those are your amplifiers. Those are like, it's like starting a forest fire. You have these little twigs on the edge. You want to kind of catch that on. So that's really, really important. I wish LinkedIn, for example, had an easy way for me to just automatically add as a contact everyone who had liked a post or commented on the post, but they don't. I understand why not, but they don't. That would make the process of scaling up really, really, really easy. But yeah, that's I think the easiest way to create an audience. And I've seen people like, there's an SDR who works at Gong, and she's just like blown up, just ginormous, and she's now been invited to all of the main big industry conversations about everything. Now, Gong, firstly, are phenomenal in terms of marketing, and she's probably got their backing but that didn't just happen without her putting out content and growing. And she's like a massive superstar now, recognized thought leader, blah blah blah. But like, also just, I'm an SDR, right? And so if you're a salesperson, if you're a marketing person, like, why not just put yourself out there? You'll be surprised as to where that could go and how powerful that can be for your company. You can become this massive advocate and spokesperson for your company. I mean, there are certain personalities, right, in the marketing world, right? Like, like one at Gong, the guy also from Drift. These are like really, really well-known individuals that they carry a whole brand sometimes.
And that's something that's another topic that we touched on in the past. Is you got to kind of balance between the people make the brand, but also you can't have the people be the brand, because at some point those people are going to retire and move on or whatever it is, and you can't have the brand crumble just because it is those people.
Yep.
All right. So I just want, I'm going to share a little bit about my setup for the video side of things, technology and everything. So very simple to get started. Literally, I do this off of a MacBook. no, no bells and whistles around it. I don't even have external microphone or anything that I use. I use power plug, and that's it. Since it is video, like you mentioned, it is important to have good lighting. One of the things that I do is I live stream it, and part of the reason is, and one of the reasons I ask you about why you record them, don't just do any live streams, is the algorithm likes live streams, so it'll automatically push it out to everyone. When you go live, it's going to tell everyone that's following you, hey, this person just went live. So and it kind of helps bring in eyeballs to look at it. I mean, like right now, I'm just kind of looking at the people that are watching us right now. I mean, we've gone, fluctuate a little bit up and down in terms of viewers. We have Dan Tiger watching right now. If you haven't met him, Director of Sales for HubSpot. He's in here. It's pretty impressive to see, the people coming in.
Yeah, how many million of views are we up to at the moment, David? A couple million.
Once Dan shares this.
Yeah.
But yeah, so it's the reason I go for the live stream is because of the algorithm that just kind of boosts it out. In terms of software, like I said, Facebook used to be able to just do guest hosting, guest podcast, guest thing on a live video. They enabled it, disabled it, only Android, only mobile. Like they made it very complicated. We've tried a couple of times. I've had an option to invite somebody. I click invite, and they just don't show up. And they're saying that they're getting an error message. It just didn't work. And the problem is there's no way to test it without actually going live. So you're actually there on a live stream, kind of like poking your screen on your phone. It was just really annoying. So I started using this software called StreamYard. And I'm actually just gonna push this over for a sec. I'm gonna actually just switch to this. Let's put this guy on. The microphone. So this is the screen recording of my screen. Let me fix that. Well, you can't really see it, but this is basically StreamYard, just to show you how easy it is to use. It literally just you have the three people that are connected, the broadcasters, and I just have these little buttons here where I could kind of go in and choose who I'm broadcasting.
What's some screenception going on there?
Go 3 people, 2 people. It's very easy to manipulate and use. And the reason I set it up this way is, sorry. And the reason I kind of use it is just because it's so easy to work with. And then this plugs in directly into Facebook, LinkedIn Live, YouTube, and any other platform you want to broadcast to. This subscription is about $15 a month. Also, not a big investment. So there's no reason to not put a little bit of money behind it if you are going to start doing this. Even though, like I said, don't invest until you start doing it. It gives you, I think, 20 hours a month of free streaming. So you have the logo for the first couple of broadcasts. It's not a big deal. So what I do is I find the speaker. We decide on a day and time that we want to work with. I mean, in terms of hardware, that's all I have. My phone. This is a microphone I mentioned that I have. $20, AliExpress or Amazon. That's all you need. That's the hardware side of it, and then software is just StreamYard going into Facebook Live. The prep is we had the Google Doc that we had where we just kind of built out a flow. We're going to talk about first the concept of why do it, then the technology. Then we're going to talk a little bit about how to distribute it and then get it out there. And that's it. And you just go on, just do it, because otherwise, if you try to overthink it and try to make do the perfect thing, you end up very negative ROI. You're going to invest a lot of time and money into doing something perfect that nobody watches.
Right.
I'd rather spend 5 minutes setting something up and just running with it and have nobody watch it than spend 3 weeks of planning and $500 of equipment and have nobody watch it.
Yeah, it's like that. I don't know if it's a joke or if it's a real story about the difference between the American space program and the Russian space program and the invention of the ballpoint pen. But the story that I've heard is the ballpoint pen was invented by NASA because the ink in space, if they needed to write anything, would float. Yeah. And so they spent millions of dollars inventing the system of kind of keeping the ink contained and what have you. And the Russians took a pencil, right? So you got to sometimes, you got to think a little bit outside the box as well, right? You don't always have to have the fanciest tools to achieve the same task.
Yeah, I've heard like similar story where they had a factory producing stuff, and they had like the packages come off the cardboard boxes, and customer called and complained and said that his box was empty. And he got a package of ordered whatever it was, and it was empty. And so then they brought in consultants and industrial engineers and put in like weights along the thing to make sure that that no box goes off the conveyor belt without weighing a certain amount. And then they see that like they caught like 0 false positives. So they're trying to figure out why it is. They go into the warehouse and they see that the workers just put this big fan on one side of the conveyor belt to blow off any empty boxes. Sometimes the easiest solutions are the best ones.
Yeah, absolutely. And this is a great, easy to set up and easy to maintain channel to attract an audience.
Right. So that's kind of that's part of what again why we're doing this is to share with people how easy it is to set this up. I've been like you, kind of doing this on my personal Facebook page till now, because again, this was started as a just do it and then kind of build it as it develops. In terms of building an audience and kind of if you wanted to take this off as a brand of its own and grow it, then I'd say open up a Facebook channel or a YouTube channel or both, because you could broadcast to both simultaneously. And then just have people, direct, have the live streams go straight into there, and then you can have people slowly join your channel and have that grow as an entity. Yeah, I mean that's it. I mean a little bit of more background around that I do is I kind of take when I schedule the video, I take the Facebook embed code, like the Facebook live stream embed code, drop that on my website. Each episode actually has its own, like you said, I use Canva to just make a banner for it, drop that on my website. And this way people can actually go to my website and also watch the live stream if they're not on Facebook or anything. I make sure that the stream's public, so they can just go to my website and watch it. And it's also there like archived for future reference.
Yeah, I mean it's super cool how much you can get done with so little effort, right? And like in the startup world where a lot of my clients live and they're trying, I think just to sidetrack this a little bit, the thing that startups forget is that startups are a massive branding exercise. That's right. Ultimately what they are, right? You are trying to get as much positive attention for your brand in the shortest window as possible to attract investors, number one, right? And then clients, number two, depending on which stage you're at. At some point that changes, but right. At least in the beginning, right? So if you're starting out and you want to present yourselves as a credible source, you've got to look at solutions like podcasting that can help you to establish that domain authority, that can help you get out and get talked about or get heard, and that don't necessarily require a lot of resources financially or time-wise either.
Right, and it's not only does it save you first of all, the money. You don't have to waste time on waste a ton of money on ads. In addition, like you said, the authority building. It's if I reach you through if you've never seen me, don't know who I am, and you see an ad that I sent you, that's one thing. But if a friend of yours says, hey, you should check out this this podcast or this video or this person or this company, obviously a personal referral is worth a lot more than just a random PPC ad that you reach someone, and it's scalable. If you know what you're talking about, if you don't know what you're talking about, you probably should not be doing a startup in that space anyways.
True.
But if you know what you're doing and you really do have a better solution than everyone else, sharing that knowledge is what builds authority, and that's what people are going to share. That's what people are going to do the distribution for you.
Yeah, and I mean, even just to like take that one step further, like you can establish a lot of credibility there, and people also feel like they know you because they've heard you speak on a podcast, right? Yeah. They identify with you, and you don't even know necessarily the relationships that you're creating, because it is very human. Right, this kind of conversation. It's not like, even if I write my thoughts, it's not the same as me saying it in front of you, in front of a camera. So definitely worth pursuing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean the big advantage of, I just did something about it a couple of months ago. Communication is, I think the numbers were 7%. What you say, like 38% the tone of voice, and 55% the body language. So if you write out your thoughts and somebody reads them, that's fine. But if they don't hear your voice and hear like the passion in your voice or the excitement or whatever you're trying to perceive, you're not even getting half the message out. And then if they don't see you, then that's even that's the highest level of communication.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and there are personalities out there, like people like David Goggins, or CT Fletcher in the fitness world, who they yell everything. If you hear them, they yell everything. So if you read what they write, you just hear their voice yelling it, right? Sometimes they write only in caps lock, right? So like that is something that you can definitely kind of use to also elevate the other content and stuff that you put out, because they're familiar with you and they're familiar with the brand.
Right. And I think that goes back to, building a, when they see you, they connect with you better. They could kind of follow you better, more easily. If you watch the news or read a newspaper, chances are who your favorite newscaster is. Newspaper wise, you probably don't know who the writer is. You just kind of read articles through the newspaper and don't connect one to the other and realize it's the same person writing them all.
Yeah, absolutely. Couldn't agree more. Absolutely.
Yeah. Right. What else do you have? Any other suggestions or tips that you could share?
Look, the other one I would think a lot about is, when it comes down to the content, which I think is ultimately what this is all about, it is worth like taking some of the time to like plan the bigger journey. And so, there's one thing to think about the episode. There's another thing about like what's the end goal of all of this, right?
Yeah.
So if it's just like a hobby, I just want to kind of see if I even am comfortable talking to people. People want to talk to me. Okay, cool. But if you're like trying to build a brand, your end goal, let's say for us, okay, so I'm trying to build a internationally recognized brand, and so my end goal is to have to build that domain authority, and to have people in my market identify with us in some way, whether they're consuming our content or whether they're purchasing services from us or what have you. So or referring people, hey, I've heard about this great company that solves the problem of going to market and top of the funnel, and they're called Whistle, and you should check them out. So all of these little investments that you make, specifically as you grow a company out, they do pay out dividends in the end. It's a long game. That's the thing. Like, I mean, those first podcasts, unless you've got a great channel or you've managed to do something really amazing, you're not going to get many views. It's the same as your first post on anything social.
Right.
There are better ways, to kind of get out there. There's better systems and tools, etc., that can help. But just that's part of the journey, right? Like that's just part of the journey. So especially if you're just doing it organically and you're not working with like an agency or anything like that. So I think that thinking about the long term, like, okay, hey, I'm going to run these episodes and we're going to have these discussions, with key people in the industry about topics that our audience are already interested in, or talk to people that our audience want as customers, and let's get their take on what their problems are, etc. Let's assume that that's an idea. What's the end goal of all of that? The end goal of all of that is to create an audience that are always engaged with your brand, that look at you as a reliable source of information, that identify maybe with you individually as well and trust you. And then that leads to hopefully some sort of commercial arrangement, right? Because people buy from who they trust and from brands that they trust. And just even like to extend that further, one of the most interesting things recently is all the like humorous brands on Twitter, or on Instagram. I see it all the time now. I'm a big fan of the UFC. So ESPN purchased the UFC, and ESPN's UFC Instagram account is hilarious. Like they will troll fighters, or they'll make like very funny comments like that a fan would make. And as a fan, I'm like, like they're not so stiff and not so corporate, right? So we've talked a lot about bare bones, but if you're like a big brand, you can also, you should maybe act like just a human, right, as a brand, and people like, at least in like B2C, so like it's very consumable, right? Like I easily relate. The Taco Bell ones. There's a lot of these funny.
I think the Wendy's was doing a great job with it.
Wendy's, yeah.
Twitter.
Yeah.
I think one of the funniest ones I saw was like someone was like, "Oh, I'm at Burger King on so and so. What should I get?" And their answer was like, "Get the hell out, walk 200 down the feet, and go get a burger, get a Big Mac."
It's so awesome, right? And like brands should just do that all the time, especially if you're B2C. Like just do that, and even like on a podcast, if you're a B2C, like maybe you're too big for the CEO to get on and give his or her 2 cents. But like, if you're, if you can, like, have more conversations with your audience, and then that will translate into them trusting your brand and being clients.
Right. Yeah. I mean, the more human of an, the more you add a human aspect to it, the more they relate to you, and they connect with you. It's kind of
Yeah.
what it comes down to.
Yeah, absolutely. Agreed.
I see we have a question from Aviv Jasmine. You should definitely meet him. By the way, he runs the best Israeli tour experiences. Like if you want to have a romantic dinner in the Jordanian Valley, fly like helicopter flight down there, he's the guy to do it for you.
Aviv, we got to speak before June 23rd. That's my wedding anniversary, and I'm in big trouble. So please contact me ASAP.
So you should definitely talk to him.
Yeah, I got some plans to make and not so much time to make it in. So call me, please.
So yeah, he wants to know about integrating Zoom link into a Facebook live stream. So there's two directions, right? Zoom does let you from the Zoom call. I don't know about the free tier, but if you have a paid tier, you could have a Zoom call and from there stream into Facebook Live. It also let you stream into YouTube Live. So that's one way you could do it. In terms of having somebody watch your live video and then from there link out to a Zoom call, that's not possible from within the video itself, but you could put that in the comments. The first comment could be a link to the Zoom call, or even in the video description, you could put that link. Back to what we were saying about the connecting with the brands, and video and podcasts are definitely the a step beyond just blogging about it, and it makes it a lot easier for you to get your stuff out there also.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I don't know from an SEO level, the value of it, like how that really translates. I got an email the other day from LinkedIn specific, like just saying, did you know that video content gets 5 times the amount of views? And I put up my first LinkedIn video today.
I saw that was great.
And I mean, it definitely I think it got more of a message across than I would have got in text. I had to also write the text as well because I didn't think that just posting a video anyone would click on it because people do kind of scroll through. Yeah. The traction, I guess we'll see over the next couple of days, but it's pretty much in the same as what I've had before. I'm not sure, right? But then the comments, like the way people related to it, are much stronger than maybe any of the other posts that I put out. So yeah, there definitely is something there. I'm not sure exactly what happens in the background. I don't know if you've got any kind of ideas or expertise there.
I mean, they started off, I think it's kind of even now, but when they started off with video, it really was, videos would get organically pushed a lot further. Also on the PPC side, if you'd run, same audience, same time frame, same ad, and everything, if you would take, like you were saying with a podcast, so you just take an image, put an audio track in the background and upload it as an MP4. If you'd run the same ad, but one of them as a video thing and one of them as a text, as an image, the video would get a significantly lower cost per click. Maybe like a tenth the price of the video of the image ad, because they wanted publishers to be using more video on their platforms. In terms of videos, I mean, I could show you kind of a few very easy to use tools. I guess it's a little bit out of the scope of what we're talking about here, but what I kind of I've used in the past is take your phone, make a video. People do it vertical or horizontal. I think the people are saying do horizontal, and that's where you could have the black bar on the top, where you could have the header. And you can change that to any color you want, but have the header on top. There's some great software called Capwing. They have a free tier or they have paid tiers, and they'll actually subtitle the entire video for you. They'll transcribe it, then they'll let you go in. So you put in 5 minutes afterwards to read the transcription, maybe correct a few words here and there, and then you have and then download the video and upload it to whatever channels you want to. Also, I saw that you put the video directly up, which is the right way to do it. If you link to YouTube or link to another place where the video is, the algorithms don't like that and they kick it down.
Because they want to keep you on their channel, right?
Yeah, they want to keep you on the channel. Another thing, what you were asking about the search value, that's a funny conversation. People are trying to figure it out now, and ties into one of the reasons why Quora is picking up as one of the bigger channels, because people are interacting more and doing more searches by voice. And so if you go to, if you're on Google and you type in news, you're going to get a bunch of links to various articles and whatever. If you have Google Home or Alexa and you ask them for the news, it's going to give you audio snippets of the news. And as people are interacting more with their audio devices, with their voice interaction devices, you're going to be getting more audio snippets coming up. So I don't know the science behind it yet. I don't know the numbers and everything, but I think that there's definitely a pickup in that space.
Yeah, I think, I mean, look, Amazon and Google pushing pretty hard there, right? And they dictate basically all the rules of SEO and the internet, basically, and Facebook, I guess, as well. I don't know if they're really investing so much in audio, but yeah, absolutely. I mean, I've spent some time in the world of transcription and know that space relatively well, and it's huge. It's really, really huge, and in many cases, very necessary as well.
Right, and it's funny that you mentioned it. It's something I keep thinking about it every once in a while. Video is not new on Facebook. It's been around for a long time, but it's funny that you could put up text, you could put up images, you could put up video, but you cannot put up an MP4 file, an MP3 file on Facebook.
Yeah, because they don't want to be associated with MySpace, right? Which ultimately they replaced or killed, or whatever story you want to believe, right? So I think maybe that's it, right? Like, I don't know. It's a good question. Don't know.
Yeah, I don't know either. But back to the video part of it. One of the things that keeps coming up is it's important to put subtitles because 80% of video in social media is watched on mute.
Right.
So you put the subtitles in, people still get the message across.
Yeah, that's super interesting also just for me, because I mean, like, just knowing from my own bubble as a consumer, I hardly watch anything. I just listen while I work. I wouldn't, but I mean, I can totally see how, like, if you're on any of those platforms, you're browsing your phone or whatever, you see some subtitles, gets your attention, and I've noticed actually what some companies do, like the more clickbaity ones, is before that, like, they'll kind of have the video start without anything. They'll have like a clickbaity kind of line, like, this person is eating 1,000 donuts a week or something, and then you're already kind of paying attention, and then it cuts to the video with the transcription, so you like kind of hooked before you see what's going on. I only noticed that recently, and maybe that's an angle for hooking people with the text and getting them to, engage with the video, engage the text, and stay on it.
Yeah. And I mean, if we're kind of veering into the video world, there's some companies that are doing some very interesting stuff with video now. There's a company that we work with. I've worked in the past, Vidyard, if you heard of them.
Yeah, absolutely.
So they have a really cool personalized video offering. I know this is kind of sidetracked off a tangent of what we started talking about, but they'll integrate with your CRM system, and you could actually send out 1,000 happy birthday messages, and it'll have a video with a package, Amazon dropping off a package by your door, and then you look at the name, and it says David Zeff on it, and then my video will say David Ahid on it, and everyone's video will show their personal video on it, their personal name embedded on that in that video, and you can create those at scale. Yeah,
that's super cool. And question about, sorry everyone that we're sidetracking. sorry, not sorry, but the question about scalability is, at what point do you lose it, right? Like, part of the angle with video is to be personal, and so you do want to kind of have something, and that's where email has like sort of like kind of tapered off, is that like you've got insert name here, insert company name as like personalization, with that isn't personalization. So I think if you are using video to prospect, try not to lose too much of that. Like, try to, at the very least, categorize who you're reaching out to by like some sort of micro category other than, say, industry type and title and whatever company name or something. Is there some sort of buzzword catch line or something that you can use that everyone who in that little subgroup would really relate to? That's going to definitely help. At least people say, oh, this is actually for me. I don't know what the Vidyard guys do all the time. It's how they got me involved, is they'd like be like, they have that opening thing and it's just got the name, David, and they're like, and I'm like, whoa, what is going on? That person knows my name. Let me click on that. It's an easy one. It works.
But it works. I mean, as long as it's new, it works until people get used to it and move on to the next thing. But that again comes back to the podcast and these live streams where you actually people having a conversation, and they realize it's not production quality. They realize it's not a studio where everything's edited and tailored, but it's a real conversation, real people behind it.
For sure. Yeah, absolutely. And to be honest, that's what people mostly relate to anyway. Like some of the biggest stars today are just regular people without really, a film crew or any sort of set TV production or, media production behind them. So yeah, absolutely take advantage of it while you can.
Right. All right. Thanks for taking the time. I think this was super interesting. I'm seeing in the comments that people kind of were very interested and saw a lot of value in it. We're getting a lot of likes now also.
Awesome.
Thank you everyone for joining us. Any closing words, David?
Nothing. Everyone be safe, be well. Really appreciate it. If you do want to reach out to me, just try to do so on LinkedIn. There's not too many David Zeffs out there, so definitely not too many that look like me. So yeah, thanks for joining us, and yeah, looking forward to chatting with you soon.
Awesome. Thank you everyone for joining us, and hope you enjoyed.
Thanks, David. Good to see you.
My pleasure. Yeah.